For my 30th birthday, my in-laws handed me an empty suitcase. "You're leaving tonight," my mother-in-law said. Nathan agrees. "It's for the best." I was heartbroken, but managed to smile and thank them. What they didn't know was that my own flight had already been booked. I was leaving on my own terms, and they had no idea who was waiting for me. Before we begin, let me know what city you're watching from today, and don't forget to subscribe for our daily stories. Now, let's step into that so-called golden cage. Living in my in-laws' home felt like being a cherished bird in a large, gleaming, and inescapable cage. When my husband, Nathan, and I first moved in with his parents, Victor and Sylvia, 2 years ago, it was pitched as a smart, short-term arrangement. Just a year, Nathan had promised. Just until we save enough for a down payment on our own place. 2 years later, we were still there, and the walls of that cage seemed to close in more every day. Victor, my father-in-law, ruled his world with his wallet. A quiet but powerful patriarch, he had built a small fortune in real estate and treated everything and everyone like assets to be managed. Sylvia, my mother-in-law, was the more active jailer. Her weapon was a sweet, smiling, insidious kind of care. She would reorganize my closet while I was out, leaving a faint, proprietary trace of her perfume on my clothes. She would help with cooking by subtly criticizing every ingredient I used. But the worst part, the slow, creeping poison, was what their control was doing to my husband. The passionate, bold man I had married was gradually becoming a quiet, compliant stranger. He was turning into his father's son. The fight that finally broke me was small and humiliating. I had been offered a major promotion at work, a true career-making opportunity. It required some travel, but I was thrilled. When I shared the news at dinner, Sylvia smiled her tight, polite smile. "That's lovely, dear," she said. "But of course, you won't be accepting it. Nathan needs you here." I looked at my husband, my partner, my ally, expecting him to defend me, but he just stared down at his plate. "She's right, Sasha," he mumbled, his voice low and defeated. "It's not a good time. My parents, they need us here." That night, after he fell asleep, I lay awake in the silent, opulent guest room that was supposed to be our bedroom. I looked at the man beside me and for the first time felt completely and utterly alone. His family hadn't just taken over our home. They had taken over our marriage, and they had won. It was in that moment, in the moonlit darkness of that beautiful, suffocating house, that I began planning my escape. I started saving small amounts of money in a bank account my in-laws didn't know about. I researched cities, jobs, and one-bedroom apartments 1,000 miles away. 3 weeks ago, I finally did it. I bought a one-way, non-refundable plane ticket. The departure date? My 30th birthday. It was a deadline, a promise to the self I had forgotten. I still loved my husband. A part of me, foolish, hopeful, believed the man I had married was still in there somewhere beneath his parents' expectations. But as I watched him grow quieter, more distant, and more compliant with each passing day, I knew I could no longer wait for him to save me. It was time to save myself. The weeks leading up to my birthday were a masterclass in silent endurance. On the outside, I was the perfect, compliant daughter-in-law, a quiet, smiling ghost in their grand, oppressive home. But on the inside, I was someone else. I had a secret, a liberating, brilliant, beautiful secret. My one-way ticket, a countdown clock to freedom. That secret was the only thing keeping me strong. It became my armor against Sylvia's escalating campaign of control. She seemed to sense a shift in me, a new quiet strength she couldn't place, and it infuriated her. Her caring grew even more invasive. One afternoon, I came back to our room to find her directing 2 workmen as they repainted the walls from a soft, warm cream to a cold, institutional gray. "It was so drab in here, dear," she said, with a triumphant smile. "I thought it needed a more sophisticated touch." That night, I confronted Nathan. "She repainted our bedroom," I whispered, trembling with rage. "Our private space, without even asking." He wouldn't meet my eyes. He just sighed, the sound of a man already surrendered. "Sasha, please," he mumbled. "Don't make a scene. It's her house. She was just trying to be nice. It's just a color, not worth fighting over." The silent sacrifice of my own voice became a daily bitter pill. Victor joined the assault too. He called a formal family meeting in his study and, like a king bestowing a gift, announced that he was putting us on a strict new budget. He took away our joint credit card and gave us a weekly allowance in cash, like 2 disobedient children. "It's to help you save," he said coldly, "to teach you financial responsibility." I looked at Nathan, hoping, praying, praying for some flicker of outrage, but there was nothing. "Thank you, Dad," Nathan said. "We appreciate your guidance." My heart broke all over again. The man I had married, the passionate, defiant man who once promised me a life of adventure, was gone. In his place was a quiet, compliant stranger. He was no longer my partner. He was their son, and I was just a guest in their house, a problem to be managed. What had once felt like a sad necessity now felt like an urgent, life-saving mission. My escape plan was no longer a dream. It was survival. I spent my nights on my laptop, not searching for a life for us anymore, but for a new life for me. I found a small, sunlit apartment in a city 1,000 miles away. I even lined up a job interview over Zoom. Quietly, I began selling off the last few pieces of my pre-marriage life online. A piece of jewelry from my grandmother, a small collection of first edition books, and funneled the money into my secret bank account. My 30th birthday, the day of my flight, came on a cold, gray Saturday. That morning, my heart felt like a frantic bird trapped in my chest, a mix of fear and hope, terror and relief. All I had to do was get through one last day. My small, pre-packed suitcase was hidden in the back of my closet. The plan was simple: pretend to have a headache after lunch, retreat to my room, then quietly slip out and take a taxi to the airport while everyone was distracted. But, as always, they had their own plan. As I finished my morning coffee, Sylvia, my mother-in-law, walked into the kitchen with a bright, unsettling smile. "Sasha, dear," she said, her voice sweet but sharp. "Happy birthday. Your father-in-law and I have a little surprise for you. We're all waiting in the living room." I forced a polite smile and followed her. A surprise I could only imagine what kind of new performance they had prepared for me. I just needed to get through this final act, and then I would be free. When I entered the living room, my heart sank. Victor and Sylvia sat together on their pristine white sofa, their faces arranged in that familiar look of solemn parental concern, a look I'd come to recognize as a prelude to punishment. Nathan stood by the large bay window, his back turned to me, staring out at the perfectly manicured garden. He didn't move when I entered. In the center of the room, stark against the white carpet, was a new black suitcase, completely empty. "Sasha, dear," Sylvia began, her voice syrupy and calm. "Happy birthday. We have a special surprise for you." I stared at the suitcase, my mind momentarily blank. Then Victor spoke, his tone steady and cold, like a man closing a business deal. "We've had a long talk with Nathan," he said, "and as a family we've come to a decision. This arrangement, your marriage isn't working. It's best for everyone if you leave." I looked at Nathan's back, waiting for him to say something, anything, but he stayed silent. His stillness was his agreement. Sylvia smiled, triumphant. "You're leaving tonight," she said smoothly. "We've already booked you a one-way flight to your mother's. It leaves at 10 p.m. Nathan agrees. He believes you'll be happier on your own. He'll be staying here with us, where he belongs." My heart, already battered, broke again. He hadn't just let them win, he had joined them. But in that exact moment of heartbreak, something shifted. The fear, the sadness, the need for approval, it all vanished. And in its place came something quiet and freeing, calm. The fight was over. But that loss felt like liberation. I didn't cry, I didn't plead. Instead, I did the one thing none of them expected. I looked at the empty suitcase, the symbol of my exile, and smiled. A slow, steady, genuine smile. "Thank you," I said, my voice clear and even. "This is perfect. It's exactly what I needed. You've actually saved me a trip to the store." They stared at me, their confident smiles fading, confusion flickering across their faces. This was not the reaction they'd imagined. They'd been expecting tears, maybe anger, but not gratitude. "You see," I continued lightly, feeling strangely at peace, "my own flight is already booked for tonight, at 10 p.m. actually. So this," I gestured to the suitcase, "is a very thoughtful and practical gift." I looked at Nathan's still figure by the window and let out a small laugh. "It seems," I said softly, "that great minds really do think alike." My in-laws sat frozen, their victory suddenly feeling less certain. They believed they'd finally broken me, ended our marriage, and gotten rid of the daughter-in-law they could never control. They had no idea that the silent man by the window wasn't their obedient ally. He was my secret, my partner, my co-conspirator, and as planned, he was simply waiting for his cue. "That's a brave face you're putting on, dear," Sylvia said finally, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "But we know you're heartbroken. This really is for the best. Nathan will be so much happier now, free from complications." The complication, of course, was me. I kept my calm smile and gave Nathan a small, almost invisible nod, a signal only he would understand. And right on cue, a car horn sounded from the driveway, one short, polite honk. Our taxi had arrived. Nathan finally turned from the window. He was no longer the quiet, defeated son they thought they controlled. His face was calm, unreadable, a mask of quiet determination. He didn't look at them. His eyes were fixed on me. "Are you ready, my love?" he asked, his voice strong and clear, nothing like the hesitant tone his parents were used to hearing. Then he began to walk. He strode past his stunned parents, who now stared at him as if seeing him for the first time. But he didn't walk toward me. Instead, he went to the grand staircase in the foyer and disappeared upstairs. Moments later, he returned, not with one suitcase, but two. Both were his. He placed the bags beside my empty one and finally turned to face his parents. The look on their faces, a mix of disbelief and confusion, was unforgettable. "Thank you, mother, father," he began, his tone stripped of warmth or emotion, "for making this easier than I ever imagined. I've been struggling for weeks to figure out how to tell you that Sasha and I were leaving tonight. You've really saved me the trouble of a long, awkward conversation." His mother, Sylvia, stared at him, speechless, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. "But you agreed, Nathan," she finally stammered. "We talked about this. You said you were unhappy." "I was unhappy," Nathan replied, letting out a bitter, humorless laugh. "I've been deeply unhappy for 2 years, ever since I made the mistake of bringing my wife back into this house." His gaze swept across the immaculate, lifeless room. "I was unhappy because I watched the woman I love, the strong, brilliant woman I married, slowly suffocated by the two of you." Then he looked at me, his eyes filled with love and regret. "And I was unhappy with myself," he continued, his voice breaking into a raw whisper, "for being too weak to stand up to you, for letting my wife believe I chose you over her." Turning back to his parents, he said, "Yes, we had long talks where I nodded, smiled, and pretended to agree. But I wasn't agreeing. I was buying time to finalize my job transfer to the London office, time to secure our new apartment, and time," he said, picking up our plane tickets from the mantel, "to wait for these." He walked over, took my hand, and asked softly, "Ready to go?" "Yes," I whispered. We left that house together, hand in hand, leaving behind my in-laws, once my captors, frozen in the middle of their perfect but now empty living room. The single empty suitcase sat there like a monument to their own failure. Their cruelty and control hadn't just driven me away, it had freed their son completely. In their attempt to exile me, they had orchestrated their own son's escape. As I sat in the taxi, the city lights blurred into streaks of color outside the window. Nathan held my hand tightly, his grip steady, grounding. The sound of that front door closing behind us was the most satisfying sound I'd ever heard. For a long while we said nothing, only the soft hum of the engine filled the silence. Then I turned to him. "I thought I'd lost you," I whispered, the truth trembling on my lips. "I really believed you chose them over me." He looked at me with eyes full of love and apology. "Letting you believe that," he said quietly, "was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you." Then he told me everything, the full story of his quiet, careful war. He had realized 2 years ago that he could never win a direct fight against his parents. They controlled everything, the house, the rules, even the emotional terrain. Fighting them was like playing chess on their board. So he'd decided to stop playing. He'd crafted a plan, slow, secret, and strategic. He pretended to agree, endured their lectures, and played the part of the obedient son while secretly cutting ties. He opened a private bank account, arranged his transfer to the London branch, and found us a small apartment across the ocean. "I had to let them think they were winning," he said softly, eyes shadowed with the memory. "It was the only way to make them drop their guard, to free us without them trying to destroy it." He squeezed my hand. "But watching them hurt you, Sasha, and staying silent, that nearly broke me. When they gave me that empty suitcase, their final act of cruelty, he wasn't surprised. It was the move he'd been waiting for, the checkmate in a game they didn't even know they were losing. The rest unfolded quietly. That night, we boarded our flight to London and never looked back. Victor and Sylvia tried, of course, desperate voicemails, letters from lawyers, but their power, once so absolute within their mansion, meant nothing 5,000 miles away. We didn't respond. We simply started living. A year has passed. I'm sitting on the small balcony of our London apartment, tea in hand. It's not a mansion, but it's ours. Below me, the city hums with life and color, a beautiful, vibrant symphony I never imagined I'd be part of again. I have a new job at a small art gallery that I love. I talk to my friends Chloe and Maya every week, and Nathan, my brilliant, loving husband, stands in the doorway, smiling. He's not the quiet, defeated man he once was. He's the man I first fell in love with, confident, kind, and for a long time, I thought our love story was a tragedy, but I was wrong. It was a spy thriller. My husband wasn't a victim of his family's control. He was a secret agent on a long, undercover mission to rescue me. His victory wasn't loud or dramatic. It was a quiet, perfect escape into a new life together. An incredible story of patience, love, and poetic justice. What do you think of Nathan's decision to play along with his parents to plan his escape? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you were cheering for this couple's victory, hit the like button and subscribe for more amazing stories of karma and justice. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.